False start. A false start happens when an offensive player, usually a lineman, moves before the ball is snapped. It's one of the most common penalties in football. Even a small flinch, a guard rocking back, a tackle stepping too early, or a receiver breaking into motion before the snap will draw a flag. The rule exists to keep the offense from getting an unfair head start. When it happens, the play is blown dead immediately. The penalty is 5 yards against the offense, and they repeat the down. False starts can completely derail a drive. A 3rd and 5 turns into a 3rd and 10, or a red zone opportunity moves backward. In loud stadiums, when crowd noise makes communication tough, false starts pile up fast. Offside. Offside happens when a defensive player crosses the line of scrimmage before the ball is snapped. If their body is in or beyond the neutral zone when the play begins, it's a penalty. It's most often seen with defensive linemen trying to time the snap count. A split second of impatience and they're flagged. If the defender actually makes contact with an offensive player before the snap, the play is blown dead immediately. The penalty is 5 yards against the defense. But there's a wrinkle. If the defender crosses early without making contact and the offense still snaps the ball, the play is allowed to continue. That gives the offense what's called a free play. Quarterbacks love these situations, often taking deep shots knowing they'll get another chance if it falls incomplete. Offside doesn't always kill a drive, but it gives free yardage and can extend possessions. One moment of mistiming can completely change momentum. Neutral zone infraction. A neutral zone infraction happens when a defensive player causes the offense to react before the snap. The neutral zone is the space between the offensive and defensive lines, running from sideline to sideline along the length of the football. If a defender jumps across early and gets too close to the offensive line, it can force a lineman to flinch or move. When that happens, officials throw the flag, even if the defender doesn't make contact. Unlike offsides, the play is blown dead right away. The penalty is 5 yards against the defense. It's a rule designed to protect offensive linemen from being baited into false starts by defenders creeping into the neutral zone. Crowd noise, hard counts from quarterbacks, and aggressive pass rushers all make this penalty more common. It's a small mistake, but it gives the offense free yardage and sometimes an easy first down. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. Delay of game. Delay of game is one of the simplest penalties in football, but it can be one of the most frustrating. It happens when the offense fails to snap the ball before the play clock expires. In the NFL, teams have 40 seconds to snap the ball after the previous play ends, or 25 seconds in certain situations, like after a stoppage. If the clock hits 0 and the ball hasn't been snapped, the officials throw the flag. The penalty is 5 yards against the offense. Delay of game usually comes from poor clock management. Maybe the quarterback is changing the play at the line. Maybe the team is slow to get lined up. Or maybe they're just trying to burn time and push it too far. Sometimes offenses will even take the penalty intentionally. For example, when punting, coaches may let the clock run out to give their punter a little more room to work with. But most of the time, it's a mistake that stalls a drive and puts the offense behind schedule. Illegal formation. An illegal formation penalty happens when the offense doesn't line up correctly before the snap. The NFL requires at least 7 players on the line of scrimmage, usually 5 offensive linemen, plus a tight end and a receiver. If fewer than 7 are on the line, or if the wrong players are covering up eligible receivers, it's a penalty. Often you'll see a wideout flagged for not being on the line when they think they are, or a tight end accidentally covered up by another player. The penalty is 5 yards against the offense. Illegal formations usually come from miscommunication or sloppy pre-snap alignment. They don't rely on movement, just positioning. Coaches drill it constantly, but in the chaos of hurry-up offenses and shifting personnel groups, mistakes still happen. It's not a flashy penalty, but it can kill momentum by turning 3rd and short into 3rd and long. Illegal motion. Illegal motion is called when an offensive player is moving in a way that isn't allowed at the time of the snap. Before the ball is snapped, only one player on offense is allowed to be in motion, and they can't be moving toward the line of scrimmage. They have to be going laterally or backward. If a receiver, running back, or tight end drifts forward as the ball is snapped, it's a penalty. This rule exists to keep the offense from gaining an unfair advantage with a running start. Canadian football allows forward motion before the snap. The NFL does not. The penalty is 5 yards against the offense. Illegal motion often happens when offenses are using jet sweeps, shifts, or complicated pre-snap looks to confuse defenses. One mistimed step, or a player forgetting to get fully set, and the play is wiped out before it even starts. Illegal shift. An illegal shift happens when 2 or more offensive players are moving at the same time before the snap, and they don't all come to a complete stop for at least 1 full second. The NFL allows pre-snap shifts. Players can move around, motion across the formation, or change positions. But the rule is that once everyone is in their new spot, the entire offense must be set and motionless for a second before the ball is snapped. If the snap comes too early, or if multiple players are still moving, the flag comes out. The penalty is 5 yards against the offense. Illegal shift calls often come in hurry-up situations, where the offense is rushing to snap the ball and doesn't wait that extra second. They can also happen when motions and shifts are stacked together, and timing gets thrown off. It's a technical penalty, but it keeps the offense from using chaotic movement to gain an unfair edge. Too many men on the field. Too many men on the field is exactly what it sounds like when a team has more than 11 players on the field at the snap. This usually happens during substitutions. A defense may try to change packages, but one player doesn't get off in time. Or an offense might break the huddle with 12 players and fail to notice. If even 1 extra foot is on the field when the ball is snapped, it's a flag. The penalty is 5 yards against whichever side committed the mistake. Sometimes it's obvious, with 12 players lined up and ready. Other times, it's a split-second issue where someone is still jogging toward the sideline as the ball is snapped. That's still a penalty. For defenses, it's particularly costly because it can negate a huge play. For offenses, it's usually just sloppy communication. Coaches preach substitution discipline constantly, but in the speed of the game, it happens more often than you'd think. Offensive holding. Offensive holding is one of the most common penalties in football. It happens when an offensive player, usually a lineman, illegally grabs, hooks, or restrains a defender to prevent them from making a play. Linemen are allowed to block with their hands inside the defender's frame, but once they extend their arms, grab cloth, or pull a rusher down, it's holding. You'll often see it called when a defender beats a blocker off the line, and the blocker panics to keep the quarterback clean. The penalty is 10 yards against the offense. If it happens in the end zone, it results in a safety. Offensive holding is frustrating because it wipes out big plays. A 20-yard gain can instantly turn into 1st and 20. It's also subjective. Some tugs get flagged, some don't, and fans always argue about consistency. Coaches drill technique to avoid it, but when linemen are losing leverage, holding becomes the last resort. It's one of those penalties that can kill drives in an instant. Defensive holding. Defensive holding is called when a defensive player illegally grabs or restricts an eligible receiver before the ball is thrown. It usually happens within the first few yards of the line of scrimmage. Defenders are allowed to jam receivers at the snap, but they can't latch on, tug a jersey, or hook an arm to keep them from running their route. Once the contact restricts movement, it's a penalty. The penalty is 5 yards from the previous spot, and most importantly, an automatic first down for the offense. That automatic first down makes it one of the most costly penalties a defense can commit, especially on 3rd down when the offense would have otherwise been off the field. It's different from pass interference, which occurs when the ball is in the air. Defensive holding is about what happens before the throw. Fans often lump the two together, but the distinction is critical. Holding gives the offense free yardage and another set of downs, even if the play was going nowhere. Pass interference, offensive and defensive. Pass interference is one of the most debated penalties in football because it can completely swing a game. It's called when a player makes illegal contact with an opponent while the ball is in the air, restricting their ability to catch it. There are 2 types. Defensive pass interference DPI. This is when a defender grabs, pushes, or makes early contact with a receiver before the ball arrives. If the defender doesn't turn his head, plays through the receiver's body, or pulls on an arm to prevent a catch, it's DPI. The penalty is huge. The offense gets the ball at the spot of the foul and an automatic first down. A deep throw that draws interference can flip field position instantly, sometimes gaining 40 or 50 yards without a completed pass. Offensive pass interference, OPI. This is when a receiver creates separation illegally, like pushing off a defender's chest, extending an arm, or blocking downfield before the ball is thrown. The penalty is 10 yards against the offense from the previous spot. Unlike DPI, there's no spot foul. It simply moves the offense back. Pass interference is often subjective, depending on how much contact officials allow. Some games are called tightly, while others let more physical play slide. That's why it's one of the most controversial penalties in the sport. Illegal contact. Illegal contact is a penalty that applies only to the defense, and it happens when a defender makes significant contact with a receiver beyond 5 yards from the line of scrimmage before the ball is thrown. Defenders are allowed to jam receivers at the line, but once those first 5 yards are gone, they can't keep riding them, shoving them, or grabbing at their route. If they do, it's illegal contact. The key difference between this and defensive holding is that illegal contact is usually less about tugging a jersey and more about physically impeding the receiver's progress downfield. The penalty is 5 yards and an automatic first down for the offense. It's one of the trickier penalties because it's called before the ball is in the air, if the quarterback hasn't thrown it yet, but a receiver is being restricted beyond 5 yards, the flag comes out. Illegal contact was emphasized heavily in the early 2000s. After defenses like the early 2000s, Patriots were extremely physical with receivers. The NFL tightened up the rules to give passing offenses more freedom, and the result has been a more wide-open game. Roughing the passer. Roughing the passer is one of the most protective penalties in the NFL, designed to keep quarterbacks safe after they release the ball. It's called when a defender makes illegal contact with the quarterback after a pass has been thrown. That can mean hitting the quarterback late, driving them into the ground, striking them in the head or neck, or making forcible contact at the knees. Even landing with full body weight can draw a flag. The penalty is 15 yards and an automatic first down for the offense. The rule has existed for decades, but in recent years, it's become one of the most controversial penalties in football. Defenders argue that it's nearly impossible to pull up once they're already in motion. Fans often complain about soft calls, where normal hits are penalized. On the other side, the league insists it's necessary. Quarterbacks are the most valuable and most vulnerable players on the field. Some of the most famous roughing calls have swung playoff games and sparked endless debate about whether the NFL is becoming too protective. But the bottom line is this. If a defender hits a quarterback outside the small legal strike zone, the flag is coming out. Roughing/running into the kicker. This penalty exists to protect one of the most vulnerable players on the field, the kicker. When a kicker is punting or attempting a field goal, they're focused on their motion with one leg in the air and no way to protect themselves. Because of that, defenders have strict rules about how they can rush the kick. There are two versions of this penalty. Running into the kicker. This is the less severe version. It happens when a defender makes incidental or minor contact with the kicker after the ball is gone. Maybe they clip the plant leg, bump the body, or slide into the kicker without full force. The penalty is 5 yards, and it does not carry an automatic first down unless it's enough to move the chains. Roughing the kicker. This is the serious one. If a defender makes forcible contact with the plant leg, drives through the kicker, or knocks them down violently, it's roughing. The penalty is 15 yards and an automatic first down. The rule is clear. Defenders must go for the ball, not the body. If they lay out and miss the ball entirely, but crash into the kicker, it's almost always flagged. These penalties can change games, especially on 4th down. A stop can turn into a fresh set of downs, giving the offense another chance. That's why coaches constantly stress discipline on special teams. Illegal use of hands, hands to the face. This penalty is called when a player makes illegal contact with their hands, usually against an opponent's head or neck area. It applies to both offensive and defensive players. For offensive linemen, the rule allows them to block with their hands inside the defender's chest. But if their hands slip up into the face mask or throat area, it's a foul. For defenders, it often happens when a pass rusher extends their arm and shoves an offensive lineman under the chin or into the helmet while trying to shed a block. The penalty is 10 yards if committed by the offense, or 5 yards and an automatic first down if committed by the defense. This rule is about safety and fairness. A hand to the face can blind a player temporarily, throw off balance, or even cause injury. It's also about preventing subtle techniques that give blockers or rushers an unfair edge. Block in the back. A block in the back is called when a player pushes an opponent from behind above the waist, usually during a return play. It most often happens on punts or kickoffs, where blockers are trying to spring the returner into the open field. If a player is chasing the returner and gets shoved in the back by a blocker, it's a foul. The push doesn't have to be violent. Even a small shove that changes the defender's path is enough for a flag. The penalty is 10 yards from the spot of the foul. That's important because it often wipes out big returns. A 40-yard runback can suddenly become a 10-yard gain once the penalty is marked off. The rule exists for safety and fairness. Getting shoved in the back while running full speed is dangerous, and it gives the offense an unfair angle advantage. Fans see this penalty a lot on special teams, and it's one of the most deflating ones in football. A game-changing return can vanish with a single block in the back. Blindside block. A blindside block is called when a player delivers a block against an opponent who cannot see it coming, usually with force and from the side or back. This penalty was added for player safety. In the past, big blindside hits were celebrated highlights on kickoff and turnover returns. But they also led to serious injuries, since the defender being hit had no chance to brace for impact. The NFL eliminated those kinds of hits with a specific rule in 2019. Now, if a player throws their body into an opponent during a blindside situation, especially with shoulder or helmet contact, it's a foul. The penalty is 15 yards from the spot of the block. The key difference from a normal block in the back is the angle and force. A blindside block can come from the side and still be illegal if it's delivered with unnecessary force. Players are encouraged to screen or shield instead of launching into someone who isn't looking. It's a penalty designed to erase one of the most dangerous plays in football, even if it takes away some of the game's biggest collisions. Chop block. A chop block is one of the most dangerous penalties in football, and it's strictly illegal at every level of the NFL. It happens when one offensive player blocks a defender high, while another teammate goes low at the same time, usually at the knees or below. For example, if a guard is engaging a defensive lineman up top, and a running back dives at that defender's leg simultaneously, that's a chop block. The combination of being held upright and hit low creates a high risk of serious leg injuries. The penalty is 15 yards against the offense. There used to be a few situations where chop blocks were allowed, like inside the tackle box during certain run plays, but the NFL completely banned the technique in 2016 to protect defenders. Tripping is one of the rarer penalties in football, but when it happens, it's obvious. It's called when a player deliberately uses their leg or foot to obstruct an opponent, rather than blocking or tackling them in a legal way. For example, if an offensive lineman sticks out a leg to trip a pass rusher after being beaten, or if a defender throws a foot out to stop a ball carrier in open space, it's a foul. The NFL doesn't allow it because it's both unsafe and unfair. A player running full speed can't protect themselves from being taken down that way. The penalty is 10 yards if committed by the offense, or 10 yards if committed by the defense. It doesn't get called often, but when it does, it usually wipes out a desperate or sloppy play. Tripping also has a history of being one of the more embarrassing fouls, since it shows up on film as a last resort move. Face mask. A face mask penalty is called when a player grabs and pulls on the face mask of an opponent's helmet. It's one of the most recognizable fouls in football because it's dangerous and almost always obvious when it happens. There are two main situations. Tackling. A defender reaches out and grabs the face mask while trying to bring down a ball carrier. Blocking. An offensive player latches onto a defender's face mask during a block. Even a brief tug that turns the head or neck will draw a flag. The penalty is about 15 yards and usually carries an automatic first down if committed by the defense. There used to be a distinction between incidental face mask, 5 yards, and personal foul face mask, 15 yards. But since 2008, the NFL only calls the 15-yard version, removing any gray area. It's a strict rule for safety. Yanking a helmet exposes players to neck injuries and concussions. That's why officials throw this flag immediately. It's one of the clearest protection-based penalties in the game. Horsecollar tackle. A horsecollar tackle is one of the most dangerous plays in football and that's why the NFL strictly enforces it. It happens when a defender grabs the inside back or side of a ball carrier's shoulder pads or jersey near the collar and pulls them down from behind. This tackling style is risky because it forces the runner's legs to get caught underneath them, often leading to severe ankle or knee injuries. The rule was introduced in 2005 after multiple high-profile injuries, especially from safety, Roy Williams of the Cowboys, who used the move frequently. The penalty is 15 yards and results in an automatic first down. The horse-collar tackle is one of the clearest examples of how rule changes have evolved for player safety. What was once legal is now a personal foul, and rightfully so. Targeting. This is one of the most important safety-based penalties in football. It's called when a player lowers their head and makes forcible contact with the crown of their helmet, or delivers a hit directly to the head or neck area of an opponent. The goal of the rule is simple: protect players from concussions and neck injuries. While the NCAA calls this targeting with automatic ejections, the NFL handles it under unnecessary roughness. Officials throw the flag if the hit is deemed dangerous, even if it looks clean in real time. The penalty is 15 yards and an automatic first down if committed by the defense. If committed by the offense, like a ball carrier lowering the crown of the helmet into a tackler, it's also a 15-yard penalty from the spot of the foul. This rule is one of the most controversial because of how subjective it can be. Defenders argue that split-second movement by ball carriers makes it nearly impossible to avoid head contact. Fans often debate whether a hit was football or illegal. But the NFL is clear: helmet-to-helmet hits and leading with the crown are off-limits. Player safety takes priority, even if the calls sometimes frustrate defenders and fans alike. Unsportsmanlike conduct. Unsportsmanlike conduct covers a wide range of actions that go against the spirit of the game. It isn't about alignment or technique, it's about behavior. The NFL uses this penalty to maintain control, sportsmanship, and player safety. Here are the most common examples: directing gestures, words, or celebrations toward an opponent in a way that's deemed disrespectful. Excessive celebrations. Players can celebrate, but choreographed group acts using props or actions that delay the game can draw a flag. The NFL has relaxed rules on celebrations in recent years, but there are still limits. Abusive language. Cursing at officials or opponents, or using slurs of any kind. Striking, throwing a punch, shoving after the play, or any attempt to escalate into a physical altercation. Sideline interference. Coaches or non-players crossing the boundary and disrupting the field of play. The penalty is 15 yards, and depending on the severity, it can also result in ejection or fines. Unsportsmanlike conduct is one of the most subjective penalties in football. Some taunts are flagged, while others are let go. But the message is clear: the NFL wants intensity, not behavior that crosses the line into disrespect or danger. Encroachment. Encroachment is a defensive penalty that happens when a defender crosses the line of scrimmage and makes contact with an offensive player before the ball is snapped. Unlike offsides, where the play can sometimes continue, encroachment immediately stops the action. For example, if a defensive lineman jumps early and bumps into the guard, or a linebacker leans across and touches the center, the officials blow the play dead. The goal is to prevent collisions before the snap and to stop defenses from gaining a timing advantage. The penalty is 5 yards against the defense. Encroachment is closely related to offside and neutral zone infractions, but the key difference is contact. If there's any physical contact with the offense before the snap, it's encroachment every time. It's a small mistake, but one that can give an offense a free first down in short yardage situations. Ineligible receiver downfield. This penalty is tied directly to how passing plays are designed. It's called when an offensive lineman or any other ineligible player goes too far past the line of scrimmage before the ball is thrown. By rule, only certain players, typically wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs, are eligible to catch a forward pass. Offensive linemen are not. They must stay within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage when a pass is released. College football allows 3 yards, but the NFL is stricter. The foul usually happens on run-pass option, RPO, plays or play action, where linemen fire off the line as if it's a run. If the quarterback holds onto the ball and then passes late, Those linemen may drift too far forward. The penalty is 5 yards against the offense. It's not always obvious to fans watching live, but officials are watching linemen closely. Ineligible receiver downfield flags can kill creative play designs and are one of the reasons the NFL makes RPOs trickier than at the college level. Illegal forward pass. An illegal forward pass happens when the quarterback breaks one of the strict passing rules that define how the ball can legally be thrown downfield. There are a few ways it can occur. Past the line of scrimmage. The most common scenario. Once the quarterback's entire body is beyond the line of scrimmage, they can't throw a forward pass. Even if just their hand crosses over, it's legal. But if their whole body is past the line, the throw is illegal. 2 forward passes. Only 1 forward pass is allowed per play. If a quarterback throws forward, it gets batted back, and they throw forward again. That's illegal. They can still lateral the ball after a forward pass, but they can't throw it forward twice. After crossing back over the line, a quarterback who goes past the line of scrimmage and then retreats behind it still cannot throw forward again. The moment they cross the line, the forward passing option is gone. The penalty is 5 yards from the spot of the foul and also results in a loss of down. It's not common, but when it happens, it's usually obvious. The classic example is a quarterback scrambling too far forward, then throwing late in desperation. Replays in slow motion make it easier to spot, so it's rarely missed today. Intentional grounding. Intentional grounding is a penalty designed to prevent quarterbacks from escaping sacks by simply throwing the ball away without a realistic chance of completing a pass. It happens when 3 conditions are met. No eligible receiver nearby. The quarterback throws the ball into an empty area of the field where no eligible receiver is in the vicinity. Still inside the pocket. The quarterback has not escaped the tackle box, the space between the 2 offensive tackles at the snap. If they leave the pocket, they're allowed to throw the ball away as long as it reaches the line of scrimmage. Under pressure. The throw is clearly made to avoid a sack rather than as a legitimate passing attempt. The penalty is loss of down at the spot of the foul, which often makes it as costly as a sack. There's an important exception. If the quarterback is outside the pocket and the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, even if no receiver is nearby, it's legal. That's why you'll often see quarterbacks sprint to the sideline and launch the ball into the stands. That's allowed, as long as it goes beyond the line. Intentional grounding keeps the balance between protecting quarterbacks and maintaining fairness for defenses. Without it, quarterbacks could erase pressure by tossing the ball anywhere. Assisting the runner. Assisting the runner is one of the rarest penalties in football, but it's still on the books. It's called when an offensive player physically lifts, pushes, or pulls the ball carrier forward in order to gain extra yards. By rule, blockers are allowed to create space and shield defenders, but they can't pick up the runner, drag them along, or shove them ahead once contact is made. For example, if a lineman literally grabs a running back and yanks him across the first down line, that's a foul. If a teammate pushes the pile from behind with hands or shoulders, that used to be illegal but has since been allowed, which is why you now see quarterbacks being shoved forward on sneaks. The penalty, when it is enforced, is 5 yards against the offense. In practice, you almost never see it called anymore because the NFL relaxed its interpretation in 2005, allowing pushing but not pulling or lifting. That's why modern tush, push, or brotherly shove plays are legal. The only time officials would still throw the flag is if a runner is clearly carried or dragged ahead by a teammate. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.